Ladies and gentlemen, are you stuck thinking you're not smart enough to succeed? Has the fear of not having the right grades, credentials, or IQ held you back from chasing your purpose? Today, we're going to dismantle the myth that intelligence is the gateway to success. It's not your brain power, it's your belief power that shapes your destiny. Let's explore why your success doesn't depend on being smart, but something far deeper, something already inside you. There's a quiet revolution that happens inside a person when they stop chasing what they think they should be and begin aligning with who they already are. Intelligence, in the way we've been taught to value it, grades, test scores, sharp words, and impressive degrees, is not the key that unlocks the gates of a truly successful life. It may get you noticed. It may win you approval for a time. But success, the kind that brings fulfillment, peace, and a sense of purpose, requires something more sacred. It requires alignment. Alignment is when your outer life begins to mirror your inner truth. It is when your thoughts, words, and actions reflect your highest intentions, not society's expectations. In alignment, you no longer try to perform smart. Instead, you let your soul speak. You stop asking, "How do I look to others?" and begin asking, "Am I being honest with myself?" And in that honesty, in that self-respect, a magnetic kind of power emerges. It draws experiences, people, and opportunities to you, not because you outsmarted anyone, but because you resonated with the right energy. When you're aligned with your true self, decisions become clearer. You don't need to know everything. You don't have to memorize facts, recite formulas, or pretend you're something you're not. You operate from a deeper wisdom, one that isn't based in the mind, but in the spirit. And that wisdom will guide you far more precisely than any test score ever could. Some of the most successful people in the world didn't follow the rules of intellect. They followed the rules of intuition. They didn't chase information. They responded to inspiration. The world is full of intelligent people who feel lost. They've accumulated degrees, certifications, and accolades, but deep down, they're misaligned. They work jobs that drain them, chase goals that aren't theirs, and silence their true desires just to fit in. Meanwhile, someone with far less formal intelligence but greater alignment is quietly building a life of meaning. They might not speak in complex terms or win debates, but their presence changes rooms. Their work uplifts others. Their joy becomes contagious. And that is success in its purest form. Being in tune with who you really are and having the courage to live that truth out loud. Alignment doesn't come from books or lectures. It comes from listening to yourself, to life, to that still small voice that always knows the way. That voice doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't argue, it nudges. It says, "This is you, go here, try this, let that go." And when you learn to trust it, you begin to move through the world with an ease that intellect cannot offer. Things begin to fall into place, not because you calculated every step, but because you were finally in rhythm with the music of your own existence. Success, real success, is not a destination for the clever. It's a homecoming for the aligned. When you live aligned, you don't need to impress anyone. You stop trying to force things, manipulate outcomes, or overthink every detail. You surrender the need to know it all and embrace the gift of feeling your way through. You understand that every experience, every setback, every seemingly random event is part of a design far more intelligent than you could ever comprehend. What society often calls intelligence is a narrow sliver of human capacity. It excludes creativity, emotional awareness, spiritual insight, compassion, adaptability, and the ability to connect deeply with others. Alignment honors all of these. It doesn't ask you to be the smartest, it asks you to be the truest. Because when you're true to yourself, life becomes a co-creation. You stop working against it and start flowing with it. That's where energy multiplies. That's where doors open. That's where success begins, not because you knew more, but because you remembered who you were. When you align with purpose rather than pressure, you become a force not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Realness moves mountains. Realness inspires trust. Realness is rare in a world obsessed with appearing flawless. And that is why alignment is more powerful than intelligence. It's not about how much you know, it's about how deeply you live. Success belongs to those who live deeply, not those who think deeply and do nothing. It belongs to the ones who listen, the ones who serve, the ones who walk in peace, even when the world demands performance. When you align with your inner voice, you no longer need to compete. You realize there is no competition in authenticity. There is only your path, your pace, your process. You're not trying to be smarter than anyone else. You're just trying to be more of yourself. And in doing that, you touch lives, you change environments, and you begin to attract everything that matches your frequency. That is the magic of alignment. That is the beginning of success. There is a quiet illusion that perfection is the ultimate standard of success, that only those who get it right on the first try, who never stumble, who always know exactly what to do, are worthy of recognition or reward. This illusion has done more harm than good. It has frozen dreams. It has made people abandon their calling before they even started. It has convinced countless souls that if they aren't perfect, they aren't ready. But life doesn't work that way. The universe doesn't require perfection. It rewards persistence. Persistence is not loud. It doesn't always look heroic. Sometimes it looks like quietly waking up and showing up one more time. It looks like writing that chapter again, not because you're sure it's good, but because something in you won't quit. It's messy, it's uncomfortable, it's filled with moments of doubt. But those who persist, even in the small, unglamorous, uncelebrated steps, are the ones who reach the places others only dream about. The world does not wait for perfection. It moves toward those who refuse to quit. Success is built not on flawless execution, but on faithful repetition. The one who practices even imperfectly begins to carve new abilities. The one who keeps walking, even while unsure of the direction, finds doors others never see. The one who keeps believing, even in the silence, discovers a strength that perfection never offered. Because persistence is not just about action, it is about belief. Belief that your steps, no matter how small, matter. Belief that the universe is responding to your courage, not to your credentials. Many of the world's most celebrated individuals were not perfect. They were persistent. They failed more times than most people even dared to try. They faced rejection, ridicule, and resistance, but they continued. Not because they were the smartest, not because they had everything figured out, but because they had a fire inside that couldn't be put out by failure. That kind of fire can't be taught in classrooms. It isn't found in textbooks. It's born in the soul. And when it's nurtured, it leads to breakthroughs that perfection could never reach. Perfection is often a disguise for fear. It tells you to wait until you're ready, until the timing is just right, until every detail is controlled. But that wait never ends. And in the waiting, your gifts go unused, your ideas wither, your path fades. Persistence, on the other hand, doesn't wait for conditions to be ideal. It begins. It trusts that clarity will come through movement, that strength will come through struggle, that answers will arrive once the question is lived. And this trust is what opens the path to success. There is something sacred about trying again, about standing back up, about deciding one more time to give your best. Not because it's easy, not because you know the outcome, but because you know who you are and you are not a quitter. That sacred energy is magnetic. It shapes your identity. It builds character. It deepens your resilience. And most of all, it teaches you that success isn't a moment. It's a way of being. It's the way you carry yourself in the face of resistance. the way you remain faithful to your calling even when no one's watching. Persistence honors the journey, while perfection idolizes the destination. But life is never lived in the destination. It is always lived in the movement, in the progress, in the willingness to continue. And it's in that continued effort, raw, real, and often unseen, where transformation takes place. Your persistence is your prayer. It is your message to the universe that you are ready, that you are serious, that you are all in, and when the universe sees that, it begins to move mountains on your behalf. The world may applaud perfection, but it respects persistence, because persistence tells the truth about who you are. It reveals your depth, it proves your commitment, and it makes you unshakable. When others give up, you stay in the process. When others choose the easier road, you choose the road that's true. That decision, made again and again, becomes your power. Not because it's smooth, not because it's safe, but because it's real. And anything real will always be more powerful than anything that's perfect. People don't succeed because they never fall. They succeed because they rise again and again, each time wiser, more compassionate, and more connected to their purpose. That is what the world responds to. Not polish, not perfection, but the genuine spirit of someone who refuses to quit on themselves. The world can sense when someone is willing to walk through fire for what they believe in, and it cannot help but make space for that kind of soul. That kind of energy moves through obstacles, through critics, through impossibilities, not because it is perfect, but because it never stops moving. By when we move, we are taught from an early age to compete. Compete in school for grades, compete in sports for trophies, compete in business for recognition. The world seems to run on the idea that we must outshine others in order to matter, that somehow our worth increases the moment we become better, faster, smarter, or more successful than someone else. But this is a game of illusions. The deeper truth is far more liberating. Real success, soulful, lasting, fulfilling success, doesn't come from standing above others. It comes from standing with them. It comes from serving. Serving is not a lesser path. It is not weakness or passivity. It is power, but of a higher order. It is strength that doesn't need to dominate. It is love in motion. When you serve, you are not focused on how you compare to others. You are focused on how you connect with them. You are not driven by ego, but by purpose. And that shift, subtle as it may seem, is what turns ambition into meaning and effort into joy. Competition seeks to separate, service seeks to unite. The world is full of people who win on the outside and feel empty on the inside. They have the trophies, the applause, the position, but something is missing, because what they were really searching for was not validation, but connection, not admiration, but contribution. And no amount of winning can fill the space where purpose is meant to live. When your actions are driven by service, when your reason for creating, building, speaking, or leading is to uplift others, you will experience a kind of success that no one can measure, but everyone can feel. Service doesn't need an audience. It doesn't seek the spotlight. It simply shows up. It listens, it gives, it sees the needs in others and says, "Let me help." In doing so, it creates ripples. Quiet but powerful ripples that reach farther than we often know. One kind word, one act of generosity, one moment of presence. These are the things that transform lives. And they don't require a degree, a high IQ, or a fancy resume. They require heart. They require a willingness to see the divine in others and to honor it through action. When you serve, your life becomes less about impressing and more about expressing. You are no longer trying to prove your value, you are living it. You are no longer chasing success, you are becoming it. Because true success is not something you acquire, It is something you embody. And when your life becomes a vessel for service, you tap into an energy that moves through you, not from you. It's no longer about your strength, but about the strength you awaken in others. It's not about standing on a pedestal. It's about reaching across the divide and saying, I'm here with you. There is great freedom in letting go of the need to compete. It removes pressure. It silences fear. It invites cooperation, creativity, and compassion. You stop seeing people as threats and start seeing them as partners. You stop measuring yourself by external standards and start honoring your internal compass. You begin to trust that your value is not diminished by someone else's brilliance. In fact, their light only helps you see your own more clearly. And this mutual recognition, this shared rising, is the heartbeat of true success. Serving doesn't mean you lack ambition. It means your ambition is rooted in something deeper than ego. You may still want to grow, to achieve, to expand, but not to gain power over others, rather to expand your capacity to bless them. That kind of ambition is sacred. It is not about climbing a ladder to escape others. It's about climbing so you can lift others up with you. And in that lifting, in that rising together, there is peace. There is fulfillment. There is a life that feels complete. Some people spend their whole lives chasing the next big thing, the next big win, only to find themselves exhausted and disconnected. But those who serve, even in small ways, often feel a joy and richness that far exceeds their material circumstances. Because service brings you back to the truth, that we are not here to compete for limited worth. We are here to share an infinite source of love, wisdom, and possibility. When you serve, you are not just offering help, you are offering hope. You are reminding others of what they've forgotten. You are becoming a mirror through which they can see their own strength. And this kind of impact lasts. It transcends titles and awards. It touches the soul. Long after people forget your name, they will remember how you made them feel. Long after your accomplishments fade from memory, the kindness you offered will still echo in their lives. That is the real legacy of success. Not what you take with you, but what you leave behind in others. Not what you conquered, but what you contributed. Not how far ahead you were, but how deeply you served. There is something profoundly liberating about realizing you are not missing anything, that you are not broken, that you don't need to be fixed, upgraded, or redesigned in order to live a meaningful, successful life. In a world that constantly bombards us with messages of inadequacy, telling us to improve this, perfect that, become smarter, faster, more strategic, the greatest act of rebellion may be to pause, breathe, and return to the truth. You already have what it takes. This truth is not loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It rests quietly in your spirit, like an ancient seed waiting for your belief to bring it to life. You were not born lacking. You were born whole. Not perfect, but complete. The raw materials of success, resilience, imagination, desire, faith, curiosity, compassion, are already within you. They are not given to a chosen few. They are a part of your being. But if you've spent most of your life being told that only the smart ones rise, only the gifted ones thrive, then that inner truth may have been buried under layers of doubt. You do not need to chase permission. You do not need a gatekeeper to open the way. The door to your purpose has always been unlocked. The path has always been waiting. And the tools you need are not somewhere out there. They are within you, asking to be used, not judged. What keeps most people from stepping into their greatness is not the absence of ability, but the presence of fear. Fear that they're not enough, that they'll fail, that they'll be exposed as unqualified. But the truth is, success rarely belongs to the most prepared. It belongs to the most courageous. Your value was never meant to be measured by academic scores or IQ tests or how quickly you can solve a problem on paper. Your value is expressed through how deeply you live, how much you care, how boldly you show up for your life. There are people with high intelligence who never move forward because they're trapped in doubt. And there are people who defy the odds, not because they were born brilliant, but because they were willing to believe in the brilliance that lives within. So many people are waiting to be more before they begin, waiting to feel smarter, waiting to have all the answers, waiting to earn another degree, waiting for the perfect time. But the secret is, you will never feel fully ready. And you don't have to, because readiness is not a feeling, it's a decision. It's the moment you choose to trust yourself enough to try, even with trembling hands. It's the shift from waiting for clarity to walking with faith, because clarity often comes after the step, not before it. The greatest breakthroughs don't come from figuring it all out in advance. They come from taking the next step with what you already have, where you already are. You were not meant to have all the pieces in place. You were meant to begin, to stumble, to learn, to rise, and to continue. Every challenge is not a sign that you're unqualified. It's an invitation to discover how powerful you truly are. Every obstacle is not a barrier, it's a mirror, showing you the strength that doubt tried to cover up. It's easy to think that someone else has the advantage, that they had better parents, better schools, better minds. But external advantages mean little when the internal belief is missing. And likewise, external disadvantages cannot stop a soul who knows they're enough. When you stop comparing your path and start honoring your own unique journey, you begin to reclaim the power that has always been yours. You realize that the voice telling you that you're not smart enough is not truth, it's noise. It's a borrowed belief. Passed down, conditioned, repeated, but never yours to keep. You have within you a well of wisdom that doesn't come from books, it comes from experience, from the way you've overcome, endured, observed, cared, and grown. That kind of wisdom cannot be taught, it must be lived. And the more you trust it, the more clearly you will see that you never needed to become something else in order to succeed. You simply needed to become more of yourself. There is no magic formula, no secret code that only a few people know. The world may try to convince you otherwise because fear sells and doubt is easy to market. But underneath all the noise, there is a stillness in you that knows that your story matters, knows that your ideas have worth, knows that your dreams were not accidents. When you align with that inner knowing, when you stop trying to impress and start trying to express, you stop waiting to be ready and start remembering that you already are. Everything you are looking for, you are already carrying. The wisdom, the creativity, the discipline, the vision, it lives inside. Your job is not to earn it, your job is to uncover it, to trust it, to live it. The moment you stop believing that success is for other people, the moment you stop discounting yourself based on the lie of not being smart enough, is the moment you begin to truly step into your own success. Not by changing who you are, but by finally allowing yourself to be who you've always been. Think about all the great minds and works. Success has never belonged to the chosen few. It has always belonged to the ones who chose themselves. Not because they were the smartest in the room, but because they were willing to listen to the quiet truth inside them. The truth that alignment is greater than intellect, that showing up every day with persistence matters more than flawless performance, that serving others opens more doors than standing in competition, and above all, the truth that nothing outside of you completes you, because everything you need is already within. You were never meant to chase someone else's version of success. You were meant to remember your own, to walk in the rhythm of your own spirit, to trust your own journey. Intelligence might win arguments, but it's your heart, your integrity, your faith, and your courage that shape your legacy. When you stop measuring your potential by society's limited metrics and start living from your wholeness, you shift from trying to prove your worth to living it. And in that shift, everything changes. You don't need to be brilliant to be bold. You don't need to have answers to have impact. You don't need to be perfect to move forward. You only need to decide today, now, that you are enough. Enough to begin, enough to continue, enough to rise. And in that decision, you reclaim the most powerful truth of all. Success was never about being smart. It was always about being real, being true, and being fully, unapologetically you.